Claude Cowork is undoubtedly an incredibly powerful tool, but the first time that I opened it up, I really didn't understand how it was different from using regular Claude chat. And the power of Cowork didn't really click for me until I learned the 3 things I'm about to show you in this video. So first, I will show you the uniquely powerful features of Cowork that sets it apart from a regular AI chat. Then I'll help you set up a system to take advantage of those strengths so that you can create workflows that will automate your business, your work, or your personal life. I've been using Cowork for months now, and it has been such a game changer. I do want to let you know though that Anthropic reached out to me recently about sponsoring this video. And since this is a tool that I genuinely use and love, and this was going to be a video I made anyway, I said, sure, why not? But full disclosure, this video is sponsored by Anthropic. Let me start by explaining the first key difference between Claude Chat and Claude Cowork. Let's say you have several files that you want Claude to analyze for you. With Claude Chat, you have to attach each of those files to the chat. Claude Cowork, on the other hand, can access files and folders directly on your computer. So with Cowork, the process is a lot easier. I just point it to the folder that already contains those files, and it will be able to access them. Second, one of the best parts about using Cowork is that it can create files locally on your computer. So returning back to our original example, if I ask Claude Chat to summarize all of this information for me into an Excel file, it will create that file here in the chat. To get it on my computer, I'd have to download it and then move it to the right folder. If I give the same prompt to Cowork though, it will create the file directly on my computer in the folder where I am already working. I can then either manually make changes or have Cowork make changes to the Excel file for me without needing to upload it to the task every time. You can think of it like this. With chat, you have to bring the work to Claude. With Cowork, it works where you already are. Let's start to set this up, and I'll show you an example of this in action before we get to the third and probably the most important thing about Claude Cowork that finally made it click for me. We'll start by opening up the Claude desktop app and switching from chat over to Cowork. Here in the prompt box is where you can start any task. And you'll notice there is a drop down here. This allows you to choose a folder on your computer that Cowork will have access to when working on this task. My suggestion to get the most out of Cowork is to create one folder that will be used as the central hub for everything you do with Cowork. To do that, select where it says choose a different folder. Then you want to pick where in your computer this folder is going to live. For instance, you can put it inside your iCloud drive so it's backed up. Then click on new folder and give it a name. I'll call this one Cowork OS, but you can give it any name that you want. Once you put a name in, click on create and then click on open. I'll select always allow, so Claude Cowork can always have access to this folder when I select it on the dropdown. Now on the dropdown, you'll see Cowork OS is selected, so it has access to that file and any folders I put inside of it. Now, let's say you're a teacher and you just finished grading all of your students' exams. You can see all of those right here. And you want to know what went wrong because not all the students did that well. So inside my Cowork OS folder, I'll create a subfolder and call this one Graded Exams. Then I'll open up that subfolder and drag all of those graded exams into that folder. We can see all of them here now. Coming back over to Cowork, you can see we still have Cowork OS selected. And now I'll ask Cowork to help me figure out what happened here. For this, I will use the dictation button. Look at all of these exams and tell me what the average grade was, what the median grade was, and if there are any subjects or types of questions that students are consistently getting wrong. Can you also create for me an HTML report for me detailing all of those findings? And then a few minutes later, and here is the analysis. So it gives us all this information here in the chat, which is great, telling us like the average and the grade splits, but I am a more visual person. That's why I had it create for me this HTML report. If I click on this, it opens it up on the side. I can make it a little bit bigger. And for me, that's much nicer. So I can see that the average grade was about 72%. And we see that the lowest grade was 30 and the highest was 100. and we can see a breakdown between all of the different grades. Most people got an A, but there were a lot of people that got an F. Why was that? Well, this is where the students struggled. I can see where most students struggled, the second most popular struggle point, and even their strengths, as well as a breakdown of all of the questions. And then down here, I can see each student's individual score. All of that just took one quick prompt and a few minutes from Claude Cowork. I didn't even need to upload all of these graded exams into Cowork. It had access to them in the file and then created this HTML report for me that now lives inside my folder permanently there so I can find it easily in the future. So far, I've shown you how Claude Cowork can access and create files directly on your computer. Most people understand that, but what they don't understand is why that is such a game changer. The key power of Cowork is not necessarily that it can access local files and folders, it's what it does with that information. Look at this folder here. This is my central folder that I always give Claude Cowork access to every time that I use it. And you can see all of these files and folders here that it references as context for my tasks. But more importantly, this file right here, it's labeled Claude.md. This is the instruction manual for Claude Cowork. Every time it works in this folder, the first thing it's going to do is look at this file to understand what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to act. This single file is the most important thing to understand about Claude Cowork, because once you get this, you'll understand what makes Cowork so powerful. So what exactly is this file? A Claude.md file is a set of standing instructions that Cowork reads automatically every single time it starts a task in your folder. So as long as you name your file Claude.md, it will start every task by reading that file. It will tell Claude who you are, what you want it to do, how you want it to show up, and how your folder is organized. You just have to write it once, and from then on, Claude does look at it on every single task before it starts getting to work. And here's the thing, there is nothing magical about this. It's just a plain text file. You can see here that everything is readable by humans. There's no code here. There's no special settings or format. You just have to paste in plain text, and then every time Claude will read this, and you can check it yourself to see exactly what it says. Let me actually walk you through an example of what's in one of these Claude.md files so you can see how simple it is. So we'll return back to the folder that we set up for our teacher. And you see I've added a few more things in here, including a Claude.md file. I can just take a look at this by pressing spacebar on my Mac. That opens it up in preview so I can see it right here. So what's inside of this? So at the top, it explains who is using this folder. Here we have a teacher, here's a teacher's name. It explains they are a high school history teacher, and they use Claude Cowork to help them with things like planning lessons and grading students' work. And then down here are the instructions for how the AI should show up and what it should be like. So it should be a helpful colleague, not a corporate bot. It should keep things brief, for instance, and when helping with planning lessons, it should keep them age appropriate. It should always ask clarifying questions, and grading is always a suggestion, not a final grade, because the teacher makes the final call. Language like that's important because you always want to keep yourself in the loop. You don't want the AI to try to go off and do all the work for you. You want it to help you with your work. Then under that, we have the folder structure. You can see inside the Cowork OS folder, we have these subfolders, and here it lists out what those subfolders are and what's included in them. That way the AI will quickly be able to navigate this folder. And this may not seem like a lot for now, but as you add things over time, this is going to grow and it's going to make it more helpful for the AI to have a folder structure map like this. There are some other rules we then give the AI, like anytime it creates an output, put it in the reports folder, and always make them HTML files like I showed you before. And we have some skills. So whenever the teacher asks you to analyze exams, use the exam report skill. Or when we ask you to write a parent update email, use the parent update skill. Now, we haven't talked about skills yet. The short version is that a skill is another set of instructions, but for one specific task that you do over and over. So Claude.md is what Claude should always know, and skills are the specific step-by-step workflows that it should execute when you tell it to do certain tasks. You don't want it loading all those skills at once. It's just going to load the appropriate one when it needs to use it. And then at the bottom are a few additional rules, like never delete any files, always ask before making big changes, and keep all summaries short. That's the whole file. But now think back to that exam report from earlier. If this file had been set up, I wouldn't have needed to explain any of that in my prompt. I could literally just say analyze the new exams, and Claude would know where to look, what kind of report to build, and how to format it, and where to save it. The instructions live in the folder, not in my prompt. This is the part that made Cowork finally click for me. Out of the box, every new Cowork task starts fresh. Without a system in place, you're re-explaining who you are, what you're working on, what your workflows are, and how you like things done every single time. With a Claude.md file, you get to decide exactly what Claude knows, what your workflows are, and how it shows up for you down to the word. That's the real game changer here. It's not that you never have to repeat yourself, it's that you can perfectly tailor the way Claude works to the way you work. And you can take this one step further with a second file called memory.md. While your Claude.md file holds the instructions, your memory.md file is where Claude writes down what it learns about you along the way. Tell it to remember that I like my reports sorted by class period, and it writes it down in this file. Next task, whether you do it next week or next month, it still knows that because it's here in memory.md. You can open this up the same way we opened up Claude.md and read exactly what it remembers, edit anything that may be wrong. Again, it's just plain text. So between these two files, your assistant actually gets better the more you use it. And unlike the memory in regular AI chat, it's not a black box. It's a text file you can open, read, and change anytime you want. So how do you set this up? Luckily, you don't have to write any of this yourself. Claude is going to interview you and build it for you. Come back over to Claude Cowork. Make sure you have the right folder selected. I started a new one here for this new Cowork OS I'm setting up. And what I'll have for you is in the description of this video, the second link will be a link to a Google Doc where you can just copy down this prompt that I'm pasting in right now. It's not behind any paywall. You don't have to enter in your email address. It's just a plain text Google Doc you can just copy. So if you guys appreciate that, all I ask is that you give this video a quick thumbs up. That's all I need. Anyway, once you paste in the prompt, you can send it along, and then Claude is going to start asking you a handful of questions one at a time to help you build out your folder for you with both of these files, the Claude.md and the memory.md. So just answer these questions honestly, one at a time. And when it's done, you'll have both files sitting right there in your folder, just like this. And remember, these are just plain text files. So in the future, if any of this information changes, you can either come in here and manually change it yourself, or just tell Claude what changes you want to make. And in addition to that, as it learns more about you, it will update these automatically as well. So let's bring this all the way back, because once you understand these three things, Claude Cowork is finally going to click for you. First, Cowork works inside the folders on your computer. 2, it can create files there, which means that you no longer have to upload files to the cloud and then download them. It works where you work. And then finally, with the right Claude.md and memory.md files in place, you never have to repeat yourself ever again. But more than that, you get to decide exactly how Claude works. The workflows, the memory, the way it shows up, and everything you wanted to know about you all in one place. At that point, it stops being a chatbot you talk to and becomes an agent you've tailored to do exactly what you want, the way you want it done. That is the big shift. If you want to try Cowork for yourself, it's available on any paid Claude plan. The link is at the top of the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.